Ireland knew it would be first in Éowyn's sights, preparations made ahead of time. But as it approached, the storm strengthened still, its surge flooding an aquarium car park in Galway. Debris scattered, terrifying by night, no less so in daytime. Just measuring these winds, a mighty task in itself. This was the strongest ever recorded storm here, winds up to 114 miles an hour. A nationwide red warning, nationwide destruction, hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses left without power. In Northern Ireland too, Éowyn made its destructive mark, hitting power lines, tearing off roofs. On the outskirts of Belfast, turning trees into wrecking machines. Mary Greer's neighbour bore the brunt, then her house too was hit.
It's just terrible. We're just living in fear every time we go in. We thought we had escaped it, and then just all of a sudden, bang.
But the storm was far from blown out. Its core carrying winds of up to 100 miles an hour, heading mid-morning for the west coast of Scotland. For a large swathe of central and southwestern Scotland, home to more than 3 million people, the red warning meant danger to life. Drivers told to stay off the roads unless necessary. More than one lucky escape caught on camera today. Air travel too was hit hard. More than 1,000 flights cancelled across the UK and Ireland. This one making it into Edinburgh, if at quite an angle. But still, would-be passengers were turning up at Prestwick on the west coast, saying they had little alternative if they wanted at least to be eligible for a refund. If a flight were to take off today, would you be happy to be on it?
I don't think so. Probably think I have to go home and do like a little adrenaline rush, but I don't know.
Inside, an hours-long vigil in an empty, cold terminal as the storm howled its way through.
We go to Lanzarote, 5 o'clock. But there are no staff. They send no staff home, baggage is shut.
So what kind of information have you had then?
Nothing.
A year we've been waiting for this, you know. But again, we wanted to go yesterday and he couldn't go. So we had to go today. We'd have been early now.
Well, I mean, at least you have someone to blame for all this.
No, like, he's to blame for everything.
For most, though, this was decidedly a day for staying home. In Kilmarnock's debris-strewn centre, almost every business was closed, ageing buildings overcome by a history-making storm. But at the Hard Luck barbershop, they opened as normal, grateful in the end for a bit of good luck.
The lead cladding and the slating coming down, so I was nearly taken out with a satellite dish when I was on my way to the bin, so that was interesting.
It's not what you think is going to happen when you come to work?
No, definitely not. It's quite an interesting start to the morning for sure. Having to dodge satellite dishes, it's not a normal day in Kilmarnock.
As their winds make their way, weakening to the east, those affected will be assessing damage, making repairs, wondering about insurance premiums. And as climate change accelerates, say scientists, so too will the frequency of these extreme weather events. How long will storms like Éowyn still be called generational? Well, Alex, the red warning is now 2 hours past its expiry, and the winds here in Glasgow have certainly abated, but they are still gusting nonetheless, and there is still an amber warning in place across large parts of Scotland. That still connotes a risk to life, certainly a risk of injury, and that's not going to be lifted until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. People here really have experienced an extraordinary day. The Fire and Rescue Service says that during the peak 4-hour period they had 250 to 300 call-outs, and even if people didn't have physical damage to their homes, there are 100,000 homes across Scotland that are still without power. And the transport network as well remains very much disrupted. We're told that the train service in Scotland won't be open again. No trains running till at least midday on Saturday. As well as that, the road network very disrupted too. People are being told to be extremely cautious. There were 11 of those lorries being blown over, like we saw in our report. And so in this extreme weather, people being told to remain extremely cautious.
Indeed. Harry Fawcett there in Glasgow. Well, earlier I spoke to Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney, and I asked him first for an update on the situation across the country.
The general position in Scotland is that what was predicted by the Met Office has arrived, and we have had winds of 100 miles an hour, which were what was predicted. That was what the worry was, that winds of that speed and intensity would be so dangerous for the population. Those conditions have arrived.
That's hurricane-force winds, isn't it?
Well, that's right. And the country's taken an absolute battering from the southwest coast right the way through the central belt of Scotland. And so the conditions have been acute. The warnings were required. And I'm very grateful to members of the public who have significantly heeded the warnings that were given and have not travelled today. And that's kept a lot of people safe.
What was the fall in figures? It was quite dramatic, particularly in terms of road traffic.
The road traffic estimates in the central belt of Scotland today and the trunk road network are essentially about 80% lower than they would be on an average Friday. So by giving the announcements that we gave, by indicating that it was unsafe to travel, the police advised people not to travel, by closing schools, we've significantly reduced the risks to members of the public. But the principal risk that remains is around about power supplies. We have in excess of 70,000 households without power supplies, and that is rising as we speak. So the challenges are acute just now for many people, and we're trying to get and working with the power companies to get welfare support in place to assist people who are without power just now.
Let's draw two strands together more widely. Climate modelling suggests these extreme weather events, particularly in terms of wind and rainfall. This on the week that President Trump pulls America out of the Paris Climate Accords. Would you condemn him for doing that?
I think it's important that we all take forward the climate action that is necessary. The climate action has always been urgent. It's utterly essential at this moment, and it certainly will not be helped by the United States withdrawing from the Paris Accord. And I would encourage President Trump to think again and to recognise the severity of the climate crisis that we all face. And we're experiencing that today in Scotland in a way.
Right.
This is
you believe he's making a mistake? You believe he's making a serious error here?
I do believe he's making a mistake, a serious mistake, because the climate warnings are clear and acute. You know, this is Scotland in January. We should have, lots of colder temperatures, and we should have lots more snow. And at this moment, we've got neither. We've got quite mild temperatures, very strong winds, and that is causing significant damage to the fabric of the country and to households around the country. So we can't dodge climate action. We've got to do it.
And it's causing ever great damage to the fabric of the insurance industry. As this goes forward, because a lot of people are going to be putting in claims across Scotland, does government have any part to play in intervening into that market? Because that's a situation that's only going to get worse.
In certain circumstances, it will be very difficult for people to get insurance, because if once their property has been flooded, the cost of reinsurance is much more significant, and in some cases, it is unsustainable. And of course, in those circumstances, and in other circumstances where people are challenged about the cost of living, insurance costs might feel like a luxury when, of course, they are an essential to sustaining people through difficult times. And we certainly work very closely with the insurance industry to make sure that they're supporting members of the public as effectively as they possibly can do.
First Minister, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, let's hear now from our weather presenter, Liam Dutton. Liam.
Thanks, Alex. Well, as we've seen, Storm Eowyn has really packed a punch today with damaging, dangerous and disruptive winds across the UK and Ireland. Now, here's the storm on the satellite picture earlier. You can see racing off the Atlantic and a curl of cloud around the southern side of it. That's where the strongest gusts of wind have been. Now, as we heard earlier, Ireland had its strongest gust of wind on record today, 114 miles per hour on the west coast at Mace Head. In the UK, the winds topped out at 100 miles per hour in Dromalbyn in southern Scotland. And all of the other nations, England, Wales and Northern Ireland, they've all seen gusts in excess of 90 miles per hour through today.
So, assuming they haven't all blown over, are we out of the woods yet? What's the latest on the warnings?
We're not quite there yet, Alex. Not out of the woods just yet. Still Met Office yellow and amber weather warnings in force through tonight into tomorrow morning. Gusts widely of 40 to 70 miles per hour the further north that you go, but of particular concern is the amber warning area that covers much of Scotland. Still gusts this evening and overnight, potentially of 80 to 90 miles per hour. And of course, that's still enough to cause damage and disruption in some spots. But thankfully, the winds will ease down through the first part of tomorrow, a respite for most, but we're not quite out of the woods completely. There will be some more wind and rain in southern and western areas on Sunday. Nowhere near as bad as today, but still locally enough to cause some localised travel disruption in some spots. Alex.
All right, keep off the Cairngorms tonight then.
Car! Oh my god, oh my god! Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, the car!